Hi everyone, I'm KB. Today I'm going to be discussing my melanoma journey from diagnosis until present day. I just let you know before I start that later on in the video there'll be some photos of my scar and my stitches, so if you're not okay with looking at things like that, I'll just let you know before I show them that there's a picture coming up and you can just close your eyes. Before I get started with my melanoma journey, just a little bit of background. I'm 56 years old. I was born in England. I moved to New Zealand when I was 15. I've had a few, in relation to the skin cancer, I've had a few bad sunburns in my life. But not since maybe my 20s. Since probably my 20s, I've taken very good care of my skin. I don't go out in the hot weather because I've got very pale skin. I've got English skin. And in New Zealand, it's a lot hotter than it is in England. So I thought I take very good care of myself. I wear a hat, wear sunscreen, I don't stay out in the sun, and I still got melanoma. Okay, where to begin? I'm going to put up, first of all, a photo of my mole, how it was before I had any problems with it. So yeah, I'd always had my mole since I could remember, since I was little. And it was different than my other ones. It was a bit bigger, and also it was more spread out rather than just a little mole, which my other ones are just like little bumps. And I always kept an eye on it for that reason. Okay, I'll just refer to my notes here on my whiteboard. In August 2018, I noticed change in my mole. I'll put up a picture now for you to see. So as you can see, there's little kind of dots, freckly dots around the outside of the mole, which I'd never seen before. Yeah, I noticed this one day and I had a closer look and thought, oh yeah, that looks different than usual, so I'll go to the doctor. I went to my doctor, as I said, it was August 2018, and I explained that it had changed colour. So my doctor, she took a picture of it and she said, it looks okay to me. We'll just monitor it. So every time you come in, we'll have a look at it. And also you keep an eye on it too and come in if you see any changes. So that was fine. So since 2018, I've probably had my mole checked maybe once a year. And over this time, I had several doctor changes. And I think that's probably why some of the changes were missed. I could see it was changing, and I'd go to my doctor and say, oh, I have this mole and it looks a bit different. It's been changing colour. And they'd have a look at it and they'd get their little scope out and have a look at it really close up. And they say, that's fine. It's just I cannot remember. You'll have to excuse me. I don't know all these medical terms. I can't remember. But basically, it was a cherry something, and it was quite common. I had those in other places on my body, and yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, so I was having it checked on a regular basis, probably once a year. And in my eyes, it was changing all the time. But each doctor said, no, it looks fine. We'll just keep an eye on it. It got a little red bump in the middle of it, and that bump started to get bigger and bigger. And at this stage, I was beginning to get a little bit concerned because I could see how different it was. Whereas when I went to the doctor, they just looked at it and said, oh, no, that's fine. It's just this cherry, whatever it's called. I can't remember, sorry. That's fine. We'll just monitor it. But the problem was every time I get checked, I seem to have a new doctor look at it. So there's a big turnover of doctors where I was going at the time. And then we moved to where we live now in New Zealand. We live in Rotorua. We moved from Auckland. And I got a new doctor again. And by this time, I was getting slightly more concerned. You know when you have that gut feeling? I had a gut feeling that it wasn't right. Even though the doctor had been telling me it's okay, I started to get the feeling that it wasn't right. It didn't look right to me. It looked totally different than how it started. So I went back for a physical with my new doctor. She did the same thing as usual, had a look at it. No, that's fine. It's a cherry, whatever. But this time I wasn't happy. I think deep down I knew there was something wrong with it, but I wanted to believe the doctor. I didn't want to admit to myself that I thought it was cancer. Anyway, now I'm up to around April 2022 by this stage. Just referring to my notes. Can't remember all these dates in my head. So yeah, around April 2022, a couple of years ago, I had another new doctor. But this doctor I decided to build up a rapport with, and I was very pleased with her. So I showed her my mole, and I let her know that recently I'd woken up in the morning and there'd been blood on my pillow, and it was from my mole. So it had started bleeding, which I knew was a sign of skin cancer. She said, okay, it looks okay to me, but because you're concerned, we'll do a biopsy and we'll get rid of it. And I was so relieved, because for the last 4 or 5 years, I think it was 4 years, all I wanted was to get it removed. But because it was quite large, the GPs were hesitant to take it away because it's quite big. So I thought, oh, this is great. Went and got the biopsy done, all fine. And I was glad it was off. I was so relieved that it was off. And my lovely doctor, she sent it away to be tested, and I just had to wait. It was quite an anxious wait, because I think deep down I knew it wasn't right. I knew there was something wrong. Anyway, I think it was about 10 days later, I got a phone call. Now, this was at the time just after COVID. So we weren't in lockdown, but it was still, they weren't encouraging people to go out in places. So the doctor rang me over the phone and gave me the shock of my life, because deep down I thought there was something wrong, but it's still a shock when someone says, he said, I'm terribly sorry, but you have melanoma. And I don't really remember much of the phone call. I just remember feeling sick, and all these thoughts were going through my head. It was a very stressful time, and I don't really remember much about it. I remember him telling me the next stage was I had to go to see a specialist at the hospital, and that they would remove some skin, and I would have surgery. They'd remove some more skin to see if they'd gotten all the cancer out. And I remember asking, what is the best case scenario? Because he was making it sound very serious, of course, which it was, but I also wanted to know what the positive outcome was. And he said the best scenario is that we take all the cancer out and it hasn't spread. And the next stage was you'll have to excuse me, it's very warm today in New Zealand and my glasses keep steaming up. So if I keep editing, that's because I need to clean my glasses. And I need my glasses to read the board. Okay, where was I? Okay. Yes, so I went to the hospital and I saw a lovely surgeon there. She answered the questions I had. Again, I don't really remember much of it at all. I remember asking about the numbers, what the chances were that it had spread. And she told me, this is hard to talk about this part. She told me not only did I have melanoma, but I had nodular melanoma, which is the fastest spreading. So obviously melanoma is already very bad. It's not just skin cancer, it's deadly skin cancer. And not only did I have melanoma, but I had the worst type, the one that spreads the fastest. And she said from my results, she could tell it wasn't spreading quickly, but I'm not sure what the medical term is, but the the cells in the skin were multiplying quickly. So that's not the same as it's spreading to your organs, but it was spreading quite quickly in my skin. And nodular melanoma doesn't go across, doesn't spread that way. It spreads down. It sort of burrows deep into your skin. So again, after that, I'm not sure if it's after that or when they first told me on the telephone, I can't remember. Because as you can imagine, it's a very stressful time and it's hard to remember some things. That's why I recommend, if you're having any kind of procedures, take someone with you, take a support person, even if you feel absolutely fine, because two people listening is better than one. And my husband came with me and we still can't remember when there were two of us there. So, but it does help. And if you in that kind of situation, don't be scared to ask questions, take notes, those kinds of things, because when you're in that stressful moments, your brain sort of disengaged and you're more about feelings rather than what's going through your head. Okay, so they also said, because my melanoma is so serious, I will be at the top of the waiting list at the emergency. So I'll be number 1 on the list. In New Zealand, you have 2 options. You can either go on the public waiting list, which is you don't have to pay, or you can go through the medical insurance option, but we didn't have medical insurance. You know, it's quite expensive and we can't afford it. So I had to wait. And I waited almost 3 months. And of course, I did the worst thing you could do. And I went online and Googled nodular melanoma, and there were scenarios there where people had died in a few months from it. Yes, and there's me waiting almost 3 months for my surgery. There were lots of problems at the time. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we were still getting through COVID. There was a backlog of surgery, those kinds of things. You know, we all has to be tested for COVID, those kinds of things going on. So, yeah, it wasn't the best time for me to need surgery for a start. I just had to wait. And in the end, I was dealing with someone at the hospital and they kept saying they'd call me back. And then the surgeon, he was sick, he had COVID, and there was all these kinds of things. It just seemed like everything went wrong. And if you've seen some of my other videos, I'm a very anxious person, and I have high blood pressure, and my blood pressure was through the roof. One day it was so high, because I self-monitor my blood pressure at home. One day it was so high I called the ambulance because I thought I was going to have a stroke or something. Yeah, not a good time. And I wrote a bucket list of all the things I wanted to do before I died. I went through things with my husband to show him things that he didn't know how to do, just in case. And that is just a horrible feeling, not knowing if you're going to survive. And it was the waiting. I just wanted to get it done so I knew where I stood. And I knew all I could think all the time. I touch here because this is where my mole was. All the time, all I kept thinking is, it's growing. If it's still there, it's growing inside me. And that is a horrible, horrible feeling. Okay. In the end, I got a lovely lady from Melanoma New Zealand to help me out with the hospital. And she knew a friend of a friend. And suddenly my appointment was available. So that's another thing I've learnt. There are lots, unfortunately, you're not always aware of people that can help you, but there are people out there who can help you in situations like that, going through cancer, going through any disease, really. It's just a matter of you probably have to use your own initiative and go and find these people. Yeah, so that was really helpful. The day before my surgery, I had to travel to Hamilton. I had to go to a bigger hospital than my local hospital. What happens is, because my melanoma was here in my shoulder, to check whether it's spread or not, they go to the closest nodes because there's little nodes inside your body, and if the cancer gets into those nodes, it can spread around and it can go into your organs. So obviously that's the scenario you don't want. So my closest nodes to here are in my neck, and the closest are actually even closer are in my armpit. So I had to go to the hospital an hour and a half away when I'm already stressed about surgery. And I'd never had surgery before. This was my first surgery where I was going to be put to sleep. So yeah, there were a lot of firsts for me for this. So my husband and I, we went to the hospital in Hamilton, and they injected some dye into my lymph nodes. I think that's right. And they scanned me through a machine, and the doctor who saw me, he said it actually looks quite good, but we'll have to wait for the results. But at this stage, it looked like, I think he said they referred to it as a hot lymph node. So that means, the questionable. Okay, so home we went again, and then next day was surgery day. At this stage, we were still wearing masks in the hospital here in New Zealand, even though the COVID numbers had come down quite a lot. And my husband, I won't go into why, but he can't wear a mask because that's his business. He can't wear a mask. And he was only able to accompany me until he wasn't even allowed to come into the waiting room with me. So I was there by myself. I was quite new to Rotorua. I didn't really have... now I have a friend I know would have come with me, but I didn't know her at the time. And my parents are elderly and they live an hour away. So yeah, this is my first operation I never had. And I was there all alone with high blood pressure and anxiety. The nurse took my blood pressure and she said, "Okay, that's very, very high." The anesthesiologist came to me and he said, we had a little meeting, and he said to me, "Your blood pressure is so high that if you weren't such a serious case, I would have sent you home." He said, "You're at risk of having a stroke on the table," basically. Of course, that didn't help my blood pressure, did it? But there was a lovely nurse there. She took me to one of the beds and she said, "Would you like some calming medicine?" I said, "Yes, please." She gave me this medicine. She said, "Oh, I'd usually give you a tablet, but I've only got what we usually give to the kids, so I'll give you that." So she covered me up in a blanket. She gave me this medicine. And the next thing I remember, so that wasn't even to make me go to sleep. The next thing I remember was waking up after surgery. Yeah. So that was that done. So when they do their surgery, they call it a wide excision surgery. Is that right? Let me just check on my board. A wide local excision. I can't say that word, can I? So that was done on the 13th of July. And what they do is they take the area where you have the mole, which was mine up here, and they take a large piece of skin from around there where the mole was, so that they can check that skin to make sure there isn't any cancer left in there. Because when they took my mole away and did my biopsy, they call it the margins. I don't know how to explain it. Basically, the mole and the skin they took around, the little bit of skin around it, it all had cancer cells in it. So they weren't sure if more of my skin in that area had cancer or not. So they took that out, the skin out, and they took only one lymph node from under my armpit. So that's good. That's good, people. Yeah, the people in the hospital, they were great, actually. I stayed overnight just to keep an eye on my blood pressure more than anything. I wasn't in any pain. They gave me, by the next day, I was just on Panadol. They gave me pain medication to pick up and a few other things, but I didn't need it. I was fine. Well, I wasn't fine. It was sore. It was uncomfortable, but it wasn't really painful. So yeah, the next day I went home, and I will show you now one of the pictures coming up that if you don't want to see something like this, just look away and I'll put it up quickly. This is my wound and my stitches. This is 2 days after my surgery. When the surgeon came to see me, this was the male surgeon, not the original surgeon I saw earlier. He said everything went really well. They only had to take the one lymph node, and I need to come back in 2 weeks to check how my wound was looking and to have my stitches out. And then they changed their mind and said, no, you can go to your GP and get your stitches out, but we'll have you in the clinic to go over your results and everything. I didn't hear anything from the hospital. Honestly, I had such a bad experience with the hospital. And I found out that I had the all clear and everything was fine from my app at my GP's office. That's how I found out that everything had been removed and nothing had spread via the nodes. Everything. So, of course, that was great news. I went to my GP to get my stitches out and they confirmed it for me. Meantime, I still haven't heard from the doctor at the hospital. I had to keep calling them. They never answered their phone. The department never answered their phone. I kept leaving messages saying I was supposed to be there in 2 weeks. Nothing. I finally got through one day and they were very apologetic. And I've got it on my board here. I didn't have my follow-up phone call. So I had my surgery on the 13th of July. I didn't have my follow-up phone call from the hospital until the 22nd of September. That's a long time. And they were very apologetic and they didn't know what happened. The lady actually said to me, do you know what your results are? And I said, yes, thankfully I got them off my app from my GP. Oh, crazy. Anyway, everything was fine. I've written down here now. So for 2 years after my surgery, I had to go to the surgical unit in the hospital every 4 to 6 months to have a review. And what they do is they check the site here where my wound was. They check usually my neck and under my arms to see if there's anything they can feel there. And they just look over the top half of my body. They don't look anywhere else. They just concentrate on the top section. And then next year, on the third year, I need to go back every 6 months for this check. And then for the next up to 10 years, I need to go annually. I now check my skin every month or two. I look at all my moles. I really know my moles now and what they look like. See if there's any changes. My husband checks my back, places I can't see, to see if he notices anything different. And I have an annual, what we call here, a mole map, where I have a nurse and she checks my whole body. And I have to pay for that myself, unfortunately. So I've had 2 of those. And the last time I went, I explained to the lady, the nurse, that I'd had nodular melanoma. And she said to me, oh, wow, you're lucky to be alive. And I knew that because of my research, but no one actually ever said that to me out loud. And that was quite quite an experience to hear that. And it's true. When I look back now at what I've been through, it was all a bit of a blur, really. It was a very stressful time. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Thankfully, I didn't need any more treatment, but there's always a chance of reoccurrence. That's why I check myself and I get a full body check and make sure I keep on top of my appointments at the hospital because they usually forget. Oh, terrible, isn't it? I did find at the hospital the nurses and the staff there were wonderful, but there just seems to be this problem with the admin. Things just aren't getting done. And you basically, what I've learned from this experience is, first of all, to trust my gut. If I feel like something is wrong, I'm not afraid to ask questions now. I'm not afraid to say, look, if I could go back now, I know you can't, but if I could go back now, I would say, I'd like this removed, please. Because that way, none of this would have happened. But it does make you feel, I know they say, oh, it's life-changing when you think you could die. And that is true. But after a while, that sort of fades, that feeling, and you sort of go back to normalized, if that makes any sense. The first thing I did when I knew I was going to be okay, that all the cancer is gone, I said to my husband, I don't have many regrets in my life, but the one thing I've regretted is when our dog died, that we didn't get another dog. So that's why we got Aria, our little dog. She has a channel of her own. I'll leave the link below. And she's just a blessing. But apart from that, there's some things in my past, if you've seen some of my other videos, that haven't been good. But I'm happy to be here. I'm grateful to be here. Sometimes you forget about what you've been through. And then other days I'm just so happy to be alive. I'm so happy to be alive, to have people I love, people who love me. And really, that's all that's important, isn't it? That you look after yourself the best you can, be the best person that you can be, your best self, and to love and care for the people that you love and care about. Other things don't matter, really. I think that's everything. I thought that I would have more to say on that, but no, I think I've remembered everything. If you have any questions... Oh, that's right, I forgot to show you my scar. I'll put that in now, so if you don't want to look at that, I'll just pop that in now. This was my scar, I think, maybe a few months after. I didn't write that down. Maybe 6 months, something like a few months, 6 months. I'm not really sure, but this is what my scar looked like. The surgeon says, yeah, that's your Harry Potter scar because it looks a bit like a lightning bolt. I'll see if I can show you it now. Hang on, you probably can't even see. I don't know if you can even see that. So it's faded a lot, but I actually don't mind having that scar there because I see it every day and it reminds me to look after myself and to be thankful to be here. I hope I don't think you can say it's an enjoyable video, can you? But I hope you got something out of the video. It really helped me to be able to get all that off my chest. That's one of the reasons I'm doing these videos. It's not only to maybe help other people who are going through similar things, but it helps me. It's almost therapy for me to talk about these things I've been through. That's my melanoma story. If you made it this far, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And very importantly, don't forget to check your spots and get someone else to check the ones that you can't see. It's very important. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time with more. This time, this video was a bit different, but I'll see you next time with more about my therapy journey. Thanks for watching. Be grateful, everybody. Be grateful for the people who you love, the people who love you. And even if you're alone and you don't have anybody, you can love yourself. Thanks for watching. Bye.